What's going on, guys? So today we're basically going to be prepping the bottom end and getting it ready to receive the new head and the new head gasket. So if you watched my cylinder head machining video, I briefly covered getting your cylinder head machined. And one of the reasons you get the head machined is because it has a brand new perfectly machined surface for the gasket to seal on. Now in a perfect world, you would get the block out, would get them redecked just like the cylinder head, so it has a perfect mating surface for the new gasket to seal on. That's the best case scenario you can get, best way to get these head gaskets to seal. Unfortunately, it's a pain in the ass to block out, and it's a lot more time than it's really worth to do it. So the best option is basically just clean the top of the block as best you can, and that's basically what we're going to be doing here today. There's some links in the description, different threads and different forums on cleaning cylinder decks, cleaning the block decks, and depending on who you talk to, there'll be like varied information. People will use pneumatic tools. They'll get like an airbrush and then just brush the top. I prefer not to do that. I prefer to do it by hand, just because it's a little bit cleaner and a little less messy. And some people will use brake clean, other people won't use brake clean, you know, various methods. So it's sort of pick your own method and stick with it. I prefer to do it by hand. I have a razor blade we're going to be using. I have a brass brush. I got this from Home Depot for like $1.50. And then I have a microfiber here that we're also going to be using to wipe up some of the stuff. So basically the idea is to get the deck surface, get this deck surface here as clean as it can possibly be. Now when you pull the cylinder head, there's going to be like leftover gasket material, dirt, some oil, dust, all that good stuff. So we're just going to clean it all completely, get it as nice and clean as we can so it'll have a perfect mating surface on the block. We're also going to go through and try and get some of the oil out of the cylinder head bolt wells and just clean it up in general. Like this one right here is filled with oil, so we got to clean that guy out before we can even put the cylinder head back in. If you don't clean the cylinder head bolt wells, whatever residue is left in there, be it oil or coolant or leftover gasket material, will prevent the head bolt from sealing perfectly. It'll prevent it from getting to its final torque. It'll sort of get in the way and not make it do its job. You want to make sure that these guys are very clean. You can get some compressed air in there and blow them out, or you can, as I'm going to do it, I'm going to thread a cylinder head bolt in and you'll watch all the oil sort of come out, and then I'm going to go in with compressed air and clean it out. So with this bottom end, there's some shit going on with it, so I'm actually not going to be using this, so I'm pulling it out and rebuilding a bottom end. So I'm not going to completely clean the entire deck in this video. I'm just going to show you basically how to do it so that you can do it. And as for cleaning the tops of the pistons, it's really up to you. Honestly, they're just going to get carbon built up on it again. So if you want to clean it, if you want to take the time and clean it right, you're more than welcome to do so. If you want to get that snazzy Instagram pic or whatever of your brand new clean piston tops, go for it. I don't really worry about cleaning them just because they're going to get dirty again, but that's just me. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is take the razor, and we're basically just going to get up all the little scraps of stuff that's still on the deck. For right here and right here, there's still a little bit of gasket material left over, so we're going to go ahead and scrape those off. Don't try to like scrape into the block. You want to keep it as clean, so sort of glide the razor over the side to scrape it off. Tends to work really well, just to get that little material off of the block. Well, keep in mind when you're doing this, there is going to be like little flakes of everything falling in everywhere, so try to guide it away from the coolant and oil passages. That's one of the reasons they recommend changing your oil about 100 miles after redoing one of these head gaskets, is because all the little materials you scrape off, all the little bits of gunk and oil and dirt, will get into the oil passages no matter how hard you try and keep it clean. So, and the first 100 miles on that oil will flush it all and get it all into the oil and make your oil pretty dirty pretty quickly. So they recommend flush your oil like 100 miles after you do the head gasket change, just to get all that residue out of the system. So we're basically just going to go down the line. Like there's some gunk right here. I'm going to try and get that up off, and just try and get it up, get it off the block. See, all this stuff is going to be in the way it's all going to be in the way for making the gasket sealing perfectly. You can sort of see some of the stuff coming up off. And even better, in some of the tighter spots, you can actually just take the blade off and try and scrape it down too. And so it's mainly just old gasket material that's built up. Try and clean some of it out with a microfiber. Try not to use paper towels when you're cleaning your block. Like drying your car with paper towels, you'll get those little tiny fibers everywhere, and that's not good. Having those little fibers everywhere is not good. It's just like extra residue inside your engine that shouldn't be there. Next thing we're going to do is going to try and get the majority of the gunk off by using a brass brush. I use brass specifically because it is a softer metal than steel. If you use a steel brush, you're going to be cutting and grazing your block more if you were to use brass brush like this. So basically, if you're going to be cleaning it, use brass materials. Use a brass brush. If you're using pneumatic, go with brass or a softer metal steel, because you don't want brush to be cutting up the deck. You want this to be as smooth and as flat on the metal as you possibly can be, and if you're scratching the block up with a steel brush, it's not going to be as good if you're just using a standard brush. So we're just going to go around and try and get all the black stuff up. You can see some spots where I already did it from the last time I pulled the head off. This section is pretty clean, so that's sort of how you want it. You can see where the gasket was sort of laid out, but it's a little bit darker on the metal. It's sort of stained with oil, gasket material, so you basically want to get it as clean as it can possibly be. And it is a pretty tedious process using the hand tool, but the hand tools like these usually do leave a lot less residue than a pneumatic tool would, but they do take a long time to clean. The only thing is, don't try and clean the inside of the cylinder wall. That can be really bad if you start scratching up these. Try and stay away from the cylinders themselves. Just sort of go around the top. If you have brake clean, you can put some brake clean on here and go after it with a microfiber. And again, if you're going to clean the pistons, rotate each piston so it is at top dead center, so you're not actually scraping the sides of the walls like down in here like that trying to clean it. That's really bad. So rotate each piston to the top and then just clean it up here, and then rotate the next one to the top and then clean it all the way down the line if you're going to clean all the pistons. This is probably one of the more tedious parts of doing the head gasket, especially if you're doing it by hand, but I prefer to do it by hand. As you can tell, the brush is already starting to get dirty, so it's lifting up all of that good stuff pretty well. It's already taking off some of that old material. You just got to stick with it. Alright, now one of the more important steps is cleaning out these cylinder head bolt wells. So to do that, I have one of my old cylinder head bolts, and so like some of them I can't see oil in it, like this one and that one. I don't see any oil, but this one is just stacked to the top with oil. So we basically got to get all that out there. I'm going to run the cylinder head bolt all the way down as far as I can go hand tight, and that should get most of the oil out. If you have the balls and you have a tap and die kit, you could run a thread chaser all the way down the block just to make sure those threads are very clean. You can see that some of the oil will start to come up and out. And so I got a microfiber here. Yep. That's all coming out. That was all in the bolt well. And all that oil was going to get in the way of the head bolt doing its job. Yummy. So you can pull it out, clean it off, and then just chase it as many times as you can to get all of the oil out. Let's see if there are any in this one. No oil really came out of that, but the bolt is wet, so there was some in there, and there probably still is some in there. So if you want to run these all the way down through each individual one by hand, just try and get the oil out, and then take some compressed air and just blow out the holes to get it all out. That's basically as much as you can do without chasing it with a thread tap. You want all of it to be as clean as it can possibly be, like I said earlier. So just take your time, clean the entire thing, And don't forget about these two guys right down here on the timing cover. They're both filled with oil right now. Just chase it down, run it down, get them as clean as you possibly can. Get the entire thing as smooth and as nice as you possibly can. Get all that gold gasket material off. Clean the entire thing. You'll be good to go. And the last part of the prep in the bottom end is draining the oil. I have not drained the oil yet on this thing. So in a lot of head gasket DIYs, one of the first things you do is drain the oil. I prefer to drain the oil after the cylinder head is already off. Just because when you pull the cylinder head off, there is still going to be coolant in the coolant wells and oil in the oil wells and all that stuff. And so that's all going to come out and get everywhere. This time I did the cylinder head gasket, I drained the oil, pulled the head off, all the oil and coolant got everywhere. I didn't think anything of it because I cleaned it all out here and cleaned it all out of the pistons, put the new head on, put the new motor together, got it all running, filled it with brand new oil, and I realized that some of the coolant that came off the head could possibly be in the oil, and I basically just soaked all of my brand new oil and coolant and it was all ruined. So I prefer to do it when the cylinder head is off, just because that oil and that coolant has drained into the old oil. So when I get the old oil out, all the coolant and all that stuff that was in it will come with it, as opposed to going with the new oil. You should still flush your motor with new oil after you finish the head gasket job to get all the extra residue and stuff out. That's just how I prefer to do it. If you drain the oil first, don't worry about it. Just make sure to flush your oil after you're done. So just as a once last over, clean the cylinder head bolt wells, clean these little bolt wells for the timing cover, and clean the top of the deck as best you can. Get it as smooth as you can so that gasket will seal perfectly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it fresh and I'll see you guys later.
You should take it slow.